It's 4 seconds before you speak, and you already know you won't. You're in the meeting. Someone just said the exact thing you were about to say, except they said it a beat earlier, and now it's theirs. You had the sentence built. You'd rehearsed it twice in your head, adjusted the wording, waited for the natural pause, and in the half-second you spent making sure it was good enough, someone else just said it. Unpolished, unrehearsed, and the room nodded like it was obvious. This isn't the first time. It happens on dates, where you think of the perfect response 4 minutes too late. It happens at parties, where you stand near the edge of a conversation, doing the math on when to jump in, and never finding the number. And afterward you replay it, not the meeting. You replay yourself. The hesitation, the half-raised hand that went back down, the sentence that died in your throat, then you look at someone else, the person who just says the thing, who walks into a room and doesn't seem to be performing a calculation first. And the question that forms isn't fair, but it forms anyway. What do they have that I don't? Most people will tell you it's personality. Some people are just born confident, they'll say. Or they'll hand you the opposite lie. Fake it till you make it. Stand taller. Smile more. Talk like you already believe it. As if confidence were a costume you could put on over the doubt and eventually forget you were wearing. Here's what almost nobody tells you, and it's the part that actually changes something. Confidence was never a feeling you're missing. It's a prediction your nervous system makes, and right now, it doesn't have enough evidence to make the one you want. Welcome back to Psych Tunes. Today we're going to break down what confidence actually is inside your brain, why fake it till you make it mostly fails the people who need it most, and the specific mechanism that builds the real thing, not performed, not borrowed, earned. Let's get into it. To understand this, you have to start with a psychologist named Albert Bandura, and a concept he introduced in 1977 called self-efficacy. Bandura's claim was almost boring on the surface. Confidence isn't a personality trait, it's a judgment. Specifically, it's your brain's estimate of whether you're capable of producing a specific outcome in a specific situation. Not, am I a confident person? That question doesn't even make sense to your nervous system. The actual question running underneath every hesitation is narrower and colder. Have I done something like this before and did it work? That reframing matters more than it sounds like it should. If confidence is a personality trait, you either have it or you don't, and there's nothing to do but wish you were someone else. But if confidence is a judgment based on evidence, then it's not fixed, it's just underfed. Your brain isn't broken. It's making an accurate prediction from insufficient data. Bandura identified 4 sources that feed this judgment, and the order matters. The most powerful by far is what he called mastery experience, actually doing the thing and watching it work. Not imagining it, not being told you're capable, doing it in reality and getting a result. The other 3 sources, watching someone else succeed, being verbally encouraged, and your physical state in the moment, all matter, but they're weak substitutes. They can nudge the prediction. Only mastery experience rewrites it. This is where fake it till you make it quietly falls apart. In 2010, a study by Cuddy and colleagues proposed that adopting expansive postures, the so-called power pose, could shift hormones and behavior enough to manufacture confidence on demand. It became one of the most shared ideas in self-help history. It was also, over the following decade, one of the most contested. Later, larger replication attempts, including a 2015 study with far more statistical power, failed to reproduce the original hormonal effects. Cuddy herself acknowledged the hormone claims didn't hold up, while maintaining that posture may still shift how people feel in smaller ways. The honest picture is this: standing taller might nudge your mood for a few minutes. It does not on its own teach your nervous system anything about what you're actually capable of. A performance is not a mastery experience. Your brain knows the difference, even when you're trying hard to convince it otherwise. There's a second study worth knowing here, because it explains why the power pose idea felt so convincing even after it fell apart. In the 1990s, psychologist Daryl Bem's earlier work on self-perception theory had already shown that people routinely infer their own internal states from watching their own behavior, the same way they'd infer a stranger's mood from watching that stranger. Smile because you're told to, and some part of you concludes you must be a little happier. Stand tall because you're told to, and some part of you concludes you must be a little bolder. This effect is real, and it's exactly why power posing produced a genuine, if small and short-lived, mood shift in the original data. The mistake was scaling that finding into a claim about hormones and life-changing confidence. A borrowed posture can shift your mood for the length of a meeting. It cannot, on its own, teach your nervous system a fact about what you're capable of, because your nervous system already knows the difference between a posture you adopted and a result you produced. So if borrowing the posture doesn't work as a substitute, what does? This is where we need a second mechanism, because knowing that mastery experience matters doesn't tell you how to get one when you're too afraid to try the big thing in the first place. Think about how your brain actually stores a track record. It doesn't file experiences under confidence. It files them as specific, narrow evidence. I said something in a meeting and the room didn't turn on me. I asked a direct question and got a real answer. I disagreed with someone and the relationship survived. Each one is a small entry in a ledger your nervous system consults automatically, faster than conscious thought, every time you're about to do something similar again. Here's the problem. Most people's ledger is nearly empty in exactly the areas where they want to feel confident. Not because they're incapable, because they've spent years avoiding the small reps that would have filled it. Every time you didn't raise your hand, you didn't just miss a moment. You made 0 entries. Every time you rehearsed the sentence until the window closed, your nervous system logged nothing, which is functionally identical to logging a small loss. Confidence doesn't fail to grow because you're deficient. It fails to grow because the ledger was never given anything to record. And there's a crueler version of this that explains why some people seem to get less confident with experience, not more. If your early attempts were met with visible failure, the joke that didn't land, the idea that got shut down in front of everyone, your brain didn't file that as one bad rep. It filed it as strong evidence that the entire category is dangerous. One vivid failure can outweigh a dozen quiet non-events, because your nervous system is built to overweight anything that once looked like a threat. So the fix can't just be try more. Trying more of the same high-stakes rep in the same room at the same volume just risks another entry in the wrong direction. The actual fix is smaller than you'd expect. And here's how to build it. 1. Collect low-stakes reps on purpose. Since mastery experience is the only source that truly rewrites the prediction, and since your ledger is thin specifically because you've avoided small moments, the move is to deliberately manufacture small, recoverable ones. Speak first in a low-stakes meeting, not the high-stakes one. Text the plan instead of asking permission. Order first at the table. None of these need to go well to count. They need to happen and be survived. The cost here is that it feels embarrassingly small compared to the confidence you're trying to build. Good. Small is repeatable, and repeatable is the only thing your nervous system actually trusts. 2. Separate the outcome from the rep. Your brain doesn't need the meeting to go well to update the ledger. It needs proof that you can act while afraid and still be standing afterward. So immediately after a rep, regardless of how it landed, mark it as a completed entry before you evaluate the result. I did the thing. That's the whole sentence. The cost is that this feels like letting yourself off the hook for a bad outcome. You're not evaluating performance here. You're pairing the sensation of acting under uncertainty with survival, and that pairing is what actually accumulates. 3. Choose visibility you can afford to lose. The reason people avoid reps isn't laziness, it's that the stakes feel unbounded, as if one bad moment will define them forever. So deliberately pick arenas where a miss costs almost nothing. A comment in a small group chat before a company-wide one. A joke with one friend before a room. This is not about staying small forever. It's about making sure your early ledger entries come from situations where a loss can't outweigh the win. Because early losses are the ones that get overweighted the most. 4. Let your body follow the evidence, not lead it. This is the honest correction to the power pose idea. Posture and tone aren't worthless. They're just sequenced wrong when used as a substitute for evidence. Once you actually have a ledger entry to draw on, let your body reflect it. Stand like someone who has, in fact, done this before. Because you have. Used this way, physical state isn't manufacturing a lie. It's expressing a true, if small, fact your nervous system already logged. 5. Expect the plateau before the shift. Bandura's own research and the decades of self-efficacy studies that followed it found that belief updates lag behind evidence. You'll collect several small reps and still feel exactly as hesitant as before the first one. This isn't the method failing. It's the ledger filling up below the threshold where the prediction actually flips. The cost of this one is patience, and patience is the ingredient every fake-it-till-you-make-it script conveniently skips. Because a hormone doesn't need patience, but a nervous system does. There's one more piece worth naming, because it changes how you should treat setbacks along the way. Researchers studying self-efficacy after Bandura found that people with a strong existing ledger don't actually avoid failure more than anyone else. They interpret it differently. A thin ledger treats one bad rep as proof the whole category is closed to you. A thicker ledger treats the same bad rep as one noisy data point sitting inside a much larger, mostly positive record. Which means the goal was never to protect yourself from a bad rep landing badly. It was to make sure you had enough other entries that one bad rep couldn't outvote the rest. Volume is its own protection. That's part of why 5 small reps beat one big one. Even when the big one goes fine, a single success, however impressive, still leaves you with a ledger of 1, and a ledger of 1 is fragile in exactly the way a ledger of 20 isn't. Do this for long enough, and something quiet happens. You don't become a different personality. The hesitation doesn't vanish. What changes is the interval between the impulse and the sentence. That 4-second gap where you used to calculate whether you were allowed to speak. It shortens, then it starts closing on its own, because your nervous system finally has enough evidence to stop asking permission first. Confidence was never the costume other people seemed to be wearing effortlessly. It was a ledger they'd been filling in. one small, unremarkable, recoverable rep at a time, usually without even noticing they were doing it. You're not behind, you're just early in the count. So tell me, out of the 5, which one is your actual gap? Collecting low-stakes reps, separating outcome from rep, choosing lower-stakes visibility, letting your body follow the evidence, or surviving the plateau? Tell me in the comments and be specific, because I read them. And if you've spent years quietly assuming other people were simply built with more of something you weren't, I hope this loosened that a little. You weren't missing a trait. You were missing a ledger, and a ledger can be built. If this made something click, hit like and send it to the person you know who always has the right sentence 4 minutes too late. They probably don't need to hear "just be confident." They need to know it's a ledger. Thank you for spending your time here with Venn Psych. Subscribe and turn on notifications so we can keep pulling apart the hidden machinery of the mind together. Goodbye, and see you next time.